Good morning. Today I'm just going to make this quick, or at least try to be quick. I'm going to talk about successful black people and how it seems like so many of them just don't want to fuck with other black people. And that just astounds me. I'm getting into this real quick because I think a couple of days ago I was talking to this woman online after I made a tweet about how black men will always say they only date white women because they can't meet black women who have similar interests to them, which I pointed out that was a cop out. It was a bullshitted excuse. So I said, if you supposedly love black women and you had no choice but to date white women, why do you go out of your way to meet black women off of the streets? Why do you have to meet black women who are into the type of things that you're into? And I'm talking about black men who are businessmen, black men who may be in an office where they are the only minority, and there's other white people and people of different races, but there are no black women. So when they sit there and try to say, hey, I only date other races of women because I don't meet other black women who are into the things that I'm interested in, it kind of makes it sound like you want the perfect black woman, but you don't have any expectations for other races of women because you already value them more than black women. You already see white women as more valuable than black women. So what kind of fucked up shit they do is something that you can easily forgive. You can easily forgive a racist white woman more than you can forgive a ratchet black woman, and that's the truth. It actually makes me mad when I see so many black men who talk a lot of game about how it's hard to be a black man in this society, but they really make it harder for black women, and they do it deliberately, it seems. Kanye West all the time talks about how hard it is to be a black man, trying to be a businessman, trying to be successful, but the moment they become successful, they forget the little people, as in the black women who helped them become the men that they are today. And then they move on to other races of women, white women, and if they are black women, they're closer to white beauty standards. So they're light skinned, mixed race, or women that you really wouldn't look at as visibly black. And that's a problem. So I brought it up how black men don't really try to meet black women who are basically good people, because I'm not going to sit there and pretend there aren't black women who are basically pieces of shit, and the same thing with black men when it comes to how black women perceive men in real life. But when you meet a woman who is like a piece of shit, like, here's the thing. My dad dates all types of women, and he tells me all the time that some of the women basically have issues. And I'm thinking, those aren't good women for you to be with. You need to find, women that are healthy for your relationship. And he's like, yeah, that's the truth. Because I feel like there are women who can be emotionally abusive to a man. And that's not something that I'm going to discard or ignore. But when you put all those women into the same category and say that's how all black women are, it shows that you are a bigot and that you really don't care for black women and that you're making all of these excuses. I actually found out that the director of 12 Years of a Slave has a white wife, I believe, or that's his girlfriend. I'm not sure. I've seen pictures, and he was standing next to two black children who looked mixed race, but they were still visibly black, and there was his girlfriend or wife. So I believe that's his wife, and that was his children. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. At first, I was thinking like, oh, like another one kind of thing, like wow, why? And it's not to say that I was like trying to hate, but it was just kind of like another successful black man who does a lot for the black community, but is with another white woman. And I'm thinking, like, how does that work? I'm actually really curious to know, how does that work when you spend all your time critiquing white supremacy and then turn around and basically have a white person on your arm. Now, I can understand why it may be different for black women, because most of the time when a black woman says that she's into a white man, the person that she is with, it's not because she doesn't prefer black men. You can watch Cola Booth's video on why more black women are starting to date black men, white men. And it's very interesting because most black women, the reason why they're not in interracial relationships is not because they're not desired, as what many people try to make it out to be, but because a lot of them don't see anything wrong with black men. So it's interesting how black men are more willing to date outside of their race than black women. And what that tells me is that, black women are so undesired, so unwanted, that I'm going to date out of my race just to get the fuck away from you. And that's actually hurtful. And I can't sit there and pretend like, oh, I'm not into white men, or, oh, I'm never going to date like a light skinned or mixed race man, or that I don't have attractions to those type of men. But I don't really have a preference. Light skin, blue eyes, curly hair, whatever, those are intrinsic traits that I don't look at as why that person is attractive. Now, they may be like a trait that I do like about them, like, their features are what makes them beautiful, but I don't sit there and project what I see and say, okay, they are genetically superior to darker skinned men. That's not how I look at it as someone who used to be into white guys, like solely into white guys. I didn't even want to fuck with black men at my school. I know how people think. I know how people think when it comes to not wanting to date another black person. And people try to make all of these excuses like it's 2012 or it's 2009 and we can date whoever we can date whoever we want. And that's true, but you're not dating white people because it's a free country or because it's no longer Jim Crow. You're dating white people because you feel that your own people aren't good enough. And in a way, it's sort of insecurity. And I'm not trying to like attack people, but here's the thing. If you don't love yourself, like, it's a very cliche saying, but it's not easy to love other people if you don't love yourself. But I feel like that applies for people of color who hate themselves because of their race. So obviously they're not going to like other people of their race, and their self-hatred projects onto other people. And that's why we call it self-hatred when a black man talks shit about black women, because he hates himself, so he definitely does not love black women, and that's very dangerous. But I believe that so many black people want to date outside of the race because they think that it's going to compensate for who they are as a person, and they will always be black. On TV all of the time I see interracial couples, and it's usually a black man with a white woman. And if it's a white man with a black woman, she's usually light-skinned and closer to the ideal beauty when it comes to Eurocentric standards. But back to the beginning where I was saying that black people should really try hard finding black people they have something in common with, because at one point you were basically struggling like the rest of us. I mean, you may have been struggling different. You may have been light-skinned, mixed race, from an upper class background or whatever, but you were a black person struggling. So when you move on up and you basically start affiliating with white people, basically people who good and well weren't supporting you when you were trying to get into that position, it's kind of hurtful, because what you are saying is that you don't care about black people and that you don't really want to share your success. And I'm not saying like give everyone credit, because people tend to think that when you tell someone to basically help out the black community, it means give all your credit to people who didn't help you. But I'm thinking like black people are more willing to support you than white people. That's why when I look at these black basketball players, these black men, and they're with white women, and a lot of times the white women be having these contemptuous expressions, like Michael Jordan's wife at the basketball game. She was kind of sitting there, kind of like with that surely look on her face. And it's common where you see so many white women on the arms of these successful black men. And you're wondering, why is it that when a black man becomes successful, I have a hard time pronouncing successful, but why is it when a black man makes something out of himself, suddenly white women are into him? And that's suspicious to me. And I really wish I could expose so many white women who sleep with black men but hold so many racist ideologies, because these are women who can still be racist. I don't care how many black men you fuck. I don't care how many mixed children that you have. You can still be a racist woman. And I honestly don't want to try to say that's how all white women are, but a lot of times when white women have mixed race children or they sleep with black men and have their children, they don't want to take the time to learn about racism, colorism, anti-blackness, and they definitely don't want to understand misogyny. Like, they try to understand what it's like to be a black man, but when it comes to black women, they don't want to understand that. That's why I'm always suspicious when white women want to be in solidarity with us. I'm thinking, like, where were you when, we were on the plantation and you didn't do anything about it? Where were you when shit was going down during Jim Crow? You were with the white man laughing at us, trying to tip our cars over and burning down our crosses at our churches, but yet you want to be in solidarity with us when you see black women doing things on their own. So I'm always going to be suspicious. And there's never going to be a time where there isn't a white woman who wants to help. But you have to realize, like, white women most of the time have never been here for black women. And it's interesting when white women come out of the woodwork saying that they want to help, when really they just want to be at the center once again, especially in the natural hair movement. But as I was saying, when it comes to white women having mixed race children, they don't want to educate themselves. Like, these women want to be lazy and have the responsibility of being with a black man and having a mixed race child, but they don't want the responsibility of taking care of that relationship, especially with the mixed race child. And I've talked to quite a few mixed race women online, and they told me, sometimes they can't stand their mothers because their mothers are full of basically racism towards black women. And it just really messes up their psyche, the mixed race women's psyche. And I can't even imagine what that's like. And I know there are people who have parents who are definitely racist or colorist, whatever you want to call it. But it's very interesting when a lot of black women who are mixed race come from white women who have such animosity towards black women. And that's why a lot of the times when you see the light-skinned mixed race women disrespecting other black women, especially darker-skinned women, you can sort of look at that source and basically investigate and believe, her mother is racist, she doesn't like black women, so that may feed off of the daughter. And that's very unfortunate. And then black fathers, sometimes they try to help raise their mixed race children and teach them about race, but they can't even understand what it's really like being a black woman, like understanding racism from a black woman's perspective. And that's hard for a lot of black men, especially when they have mixed race daughters. So sometimes they're not even helpful. So it's really hard trying to understand anti-blackness when you don't really have anyone to support you. And it was like that with me for a long time, but I still had people basically said, it's all in your head, which is not true. And then with the white woman with these mixed race children, I remember reading a Kiki Wyatt interview where she said that her mother did not want her and her brother watching Roots or learning about slavery or racism because they would look at her as the bad guy. And I'm thinking, like, what kind of abusive shit is that? Why would you not educate your mixed race children who are half black about racism just because you're afraid that they're going to hate your white ass? And give it up. Like, so many parents with mixed race children or black children need to realize that it's not about you and that you need to educate yourself about racism if you truly care about your child or the relationship that you are in. So that's why all the time when I see these black men talking about racism and how they cannot stand the white man in power, but yet you always uplift these white women and privilege them rather than trying to at least privilege black women. And here's what I'm going to admit. Black men, like, you have the opportunity of basically uplifting black beauty dark-skinned beauty in your own communities, but you don't do that. When you look at these magazines for black men, you see all types of women representing what black women should be. But when it comes to the black women gaze, like usually these men are dark-skinned and men who actually look black or have the physical characteristics of a black person, and they're definitely not mixed with all these other races. So it's interesting how so many black men try to narrate how black women should be. Drew Kim Kardashian, drew Jennifer Lopez, and all of these non-black women and non-black women of color, and then we're supposed to, like, we're so happy about it, and like we're not going to be ignorant about something when honestly, how are we going to feel inspired if your only way of inspiration is showing a woman who doesn't even look visibly black? People expect black women to just be content, and we're not going to be content. So that's how I feel most of the time. Well, not most of the time, but all of the time. And when black people who feel like they are too good to associate with other black people, it shows a lot of anti-blackness, and it just hurts. It hurts me, especially to see that you would rather give money to the rich instead of give money to the poor. And at one time you were once poor. And that's basically what it is to me, that you don't want to help anyone. You just want to help people that you feel are worthy. You feel that blackness is so, I'm not sure if this is a word, invaluable, that you have to basically help other races and not your own. And how are we going to really move if you don't even want to help your own people? And that's no respectability politics or anything. I'm just saying, why do you want to put down your own people? Why do you want to sit there and say that you are interested in helping the black community, but not helping dark-skinned people or not wanting to integrate with them? Like, you're okay with helping them, but you don't want to integrate with them, or you don't want to integrate with black people you feel are below you. And there shouldn't be a black person below you. You guys should really be equal. You guys are different. You guys have different views. But at the end of the day, no one is below you. Like, I don't have respect for people who look at black people in a funny light just because they are into things that you deem ghetto, because they don't conform to your ideal of a white-centric respectability. That's all I have to say. I don't know how long this video went, but I'm about to leave now because I'm going to get some breakfast. But I'll talk to you later. Maybe I'll do another video today, hopefully. See you.